Right. Kia ora koutou. Welcome everybody to, I think this might be our fourth. I'm starting to lose track. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, of our in conversations with practitioners around New Zealand, particularly at this time of the COVID-19 pandemic that's happening. And the inward conversations is something we'll probably continue when we come out of the level and the pandemic is starting to subside. But yeah, so this morning I'm joined with Fran Smith. Fran Smith is an OT in private practice and has been private practice since 1998. She has a company called Ergo OT Limited, and she's been particularly interested in ergonomics and functional OT assessments for quite some time. The company has three staff members, three employees. Two staff members are OTs and one admin person. So I'm just going to kick off by sort of getting some background to Fran, and so people can see who she is and where she's come from. So Fran, if you'd like to just kick off and tell us a little bit about your OT career and to where we've got to now.
All right, thank you, Andrew. Hello. Well, I've been an OT for quite some time. I started my OT career in Christchurch. I was one of the OTs who were bonded to the health department probably within the last 1 or 2 years, I think, of that happening. And I was fortunate enough to start at Burwood. I did Burwood General, and then I did work in the spinal unit. We shifted then off overseas and did some time in London and Wales, and then back in Australia, in Melbourne. Some of my work in Australia was actually not as an OT, it was a time spent being a sales representative, selling OT equipment. Doesn't come easy to me selling, but it seemed to set me up for a little while. On return to Auckland, I've spent time in Auckland, working at Waitakere Hospital, and then down in Cromwell, and then back to Wellington in the end. And I've been back in Wellington since about 1993. Yeah, I did postgraduate diploma in ergonomics, and then set up in private practice. For a long time, just worked by myself, and then employed some other OTs. So, and here we are, still in Wellington.
What prompted the idea to say, I know, I'm going to set up my private practice and go into business by myself? What was the genesis around that?
Actually, it was a couple of things. It was a need to be a little bit flexible around having young children at home. It was around the change in the health and safety legislation in 1995. Employers were tasked with looking after their health and safety, and they had to be proactive about it. They had to take an interest in how they managed health and safety, in particular in the office ergonomic environment. So before that, the health and safety legislation was quite different, and it was people enforcing, whereas after 1995 it was employers taking the initiative to set up their own systems. So OTs had a big part in that. Yeah.
So you saw a gap in an opportunity, I guess, when that legislation came in. Yeah. So when you were starting your business, it was just you to start with. How did you get your clients?
Well, I had done a little bit of contract.
I might have lost Fran for a minute.
Okay, have you got me?
You just froze for a moment there, but yeah, and we're talking about getting clients.
Oh yes, so I did do some contract work for another OT in private practice, and then that was just for a short time, and then decided actually I can do this, and it started really slowly with one or two contacts and large clients. So it worked from there. It's certainly had its ups and downs because, of course, again, with when we might have had government departments to work with in Wellington, and then there was the all of government procurement system, which meant that small practices like ourselves suffered quite a bit with those changes. But we're still here, and now we're trying to cope with this lockdown, which is another little challenge for us, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Before we go to that, just so people can get an understanding of your quite a specialist area, I suppose you're focused into sort of economics and functional OT assessment. What sort of things does your business cover?
Well, we do worksite assessments. That's the largest. No, probably isn't now, but it started as the largest proportion of our work. So employers would understand that they had a responsibility to help people keep comfortable at work, and that if they were reporting discomfort, that they acknowledged that straight away and helped do something about it. So that meant they would call in somebody to come and say, you need to be doing this to help manage this, or you need to be not doing this in order to stop people reporting discomfort. And of course, there was a time when we thought that computers were causing us to be uncomfortable, and it was a lack of recognition that actually being sedentary was the reason that we were getting sore in the workplace, as well as high repetition, but largely it was being sedentary that caused us to get uncomfortable.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was right through the repetitive strain injury time and the big epidemic in the Australian workforce, which sort of set all that off when they changed from computers, from typewriters to computers. So that's an interesting time.
Yeah, right. And just looking at where we are today with COVID-19 and a lot of people working from home, and the requirements of businesses to require their staff who are working from home to cover off health and safety requirements for employees in their own homes. And I understand that one of the things we have to do as employers is provide sort of plans, health and safety plans for those people who are working at home. So general advice, I mean, how are you making contact with people at home now and doing assessments remotely?
Absolutely. Well, if we take a step back a little bit, a few years ago, there were a number of companies who were wanting to support employees working at home. But what they did was they set out some guidelines around, they did some health and safety modules. If you're going to work from home, you need to have done these modules. And we need to know that in your home workstation, you have the following. And it might, for example, include a suitable desk, a suitable chair, a proper computer laptop, a fire extinguisher, a smoke alarm, suitable ventilation, or lighting, and things like that. So in other words, we got the opportunity to view photographs of people's homes. We got to talk to them, and then we could say, yes, this is suitable. So that was already in place for some employers.
Okay.
However, under these circumstances, all that has been asked of employees is to go home and work, not, hey, you've got a workstation and an office already set up. So the go home and work has been a defining feature for us when we're talking to people, because we have actually done quite a few assessments. We would have done about 40 assessments.
Since the lockdown?
Since the lockdown, yeah. They're quite short in comparison to what we might do on site, but it involves a person setting up an interview like we're doing now, but they have to have sent us a photo of their workstation, of them sitting side on at their workstation so we can see how they're sitting, and then we have a discussion about what's going on. And the overriding feature there has been expectation of how long am I going to sit in this place to do my work, but also to have a meeting. So if you take my example, in any 1 week, I might have, let's say I was working 30 hours, I would have at least 15, if not 20 of those 30 hours out and about,
Yes.
either driving or interviewing. The rest of the time was in front of my computer working. Now I have no drive. All of my meetings, including my work, is computer time. So, and then, you know, to get together with my colleagues at the end of the day or at the beginning of the day, that also is on screen. Yeah. So my sedentary time is enormous in comparison. And that's what we're finding. People talk about no interruptions. They don't turn around and talk to their colleagues. They don't go and get coffee. Well, they do, but it's only, you know, a few steps away or something like that. Yeah. So it's been really different. But mostly it's about, you haven't got a home workstation or you haven't got a home office, so please change your expectations in the amount of time that you can spend sitting there, and we'll walk you through the rest of the things, like, can you have your meeting on the couch? Can you stand up at a bookcase when you need to just talk to somebody as opposed to when you're actually working?
Okay, right. And so that's something that's advice you're giving to people that are working from home. And a lot of people are working at home for a protracted period now, aren't they? For what the lockdown has indicated, and the various levels too. Will keep people at home. So indeed. You make these recommendations and do the assessments. How do you know that they're being followed through?
All right. So what we do most often is we might say to somebody, okay, go and get a cushion and put it on your chair, for example. Raise yourself up a little bit. Now show me how high you are relative to the desk. Or then I go, okay, in this instance, you definitely need to raise your laptop if you're only using that as your main screen. So have you got any boxes or books or whatever? So we don't know for sure, but we write a very quick summary of our discussion. We send it back to the person so that they can see what we're writing, because in fact it's permission to write about their home, but when we see people on site, they have a consent form and they can sign their assessment. Mm-hmm. This is in lieu of their assessment, so they get to see that report before it goes back to the employer. And the employer then makes a decision as to what they can reasonably do to support this person at home. In the last week, it's been easier because we've actually been able to say you will be allowed to go to your office to get your chair if you didn't get it in a few days before.
Okay. All right. I didn't realize that, because I'm working from home at the moment and craving my office chair. So where's that sort of advice come from? It's come from government or?
Well, it's come from, in particular, government departments have gone, as long as we stagger and know who's going into the office, we will action your swipe card, for example, for this time, and you can go and get equipment.
Right.
Some organisations have purchased new for people who have some significant or serious problems, and that, of course, is available because some of the equipment suppliers have been open from the first week. Yeah. So that's happened for a few people. Going forward, I think there will be many, many more people electing to work from home for 1 or 2 days a week. So I think it actually changed the way people work, but it does produce a headache for the employer, I think, in terms of maintaining office at home and maintaining office at work. Yeah.
Right. So general advice for somebody who's working from home around sort of ergonomics and having that functional assessment. What would your advice be?
Well, if you're using a fixed chair, for example, like a dining room chair, but you've sort of got a right height for working, then you just simply need to increase your break frequency. You cannot be expected to sit for long periods of time in a dining room chair and to achieve the same level of productivity that you would if you were in an office chair that you could move, was well padded, had good lumbar support, and all of those things. So we've said to people, sit for shorter periods of time. Make sure that you take your breaks. If you can shift your laptop to a chest of drawers, to a kitchen bench, and do a little bit of work there, or do your meetings there, do that. If you can then go and sit on the couch for a short period of time, some people can work quite comfortably there, other people can't, depends on your height and your stature, do that. So in other words, mix it up as much as you can.
Right.
Do not sit on your dining room chair all day, because your dining room chair and your dining room table is usually quite a poor combination, because people just can't work at the right height. Yeah.
So it seems like moving into the effects of COVID-19, people working from home, has not really affected your business. Have I got that right?
Initially, we went from a full calendar of appointments to about 10 days, so the first 2 weeks of virtually nothing. So the appointments just got wiped out, except for the functional activities and maintenance. So the people that we were seeing through insurers or third-party providers on, let's say, TI programs or some of the ACC work, we maintained that through. My staff member had already started using Zoom for her study. So she said to me 2 weeks before we went into lockdown, we could use this. So we were actually all ready to go on day one to use Zoom or Microsoft Teams.
Right.
So her clients, she kept going. She just maintained them right through.
Right.
I did a few. We just book in some sessions and say, we're going to do this a bit differently. Can't actually see you doing anything, but we can talk you through it. So those clients, we kept going. Yeah.
And we hear from central government that there is help for businesses during this time. Did you have to apply for financial support?
Yes.
Can you just how did, and obviously don't go into detail, but how did you go about that?
Well, initially I got my admin person to look at the cash flow, and then, but of course initially you can't see it because we only invoice monthly, so we won't see it until, so we were able to invoice all of our existing work, and then we wouldn't see it until a month later. But I could see from the lack of incoming work for that first little while that we would drop right down. So we knew the amounts that we would expect to get in March and April. And then I got a note from my accountant, apply anyway and it'll all come out in the wash later. So that's exactly what I did. I just applied for the subsidy and got it, yeah.
Really? And how quick was that coming through, and what evidence did you need to provide?
We didn't need to provide anything. We just had to provide a declaration that we thought that our income would reduce substantially. So yes, we just had to, well, I had to sign a declaration that my income would reduce and that I had made all other attempts to ensure that I would have an income. So that would be things like rent reduction or going to the bank for a loan. And so I had to sign that declaration, and had I made any staff redundant during this time, then obviously the tax department would be back onto you at a later date. But for now, the subsidy came through in 4 days.
Really? That's really quick. Yeah.
Yes, it was
presumably it went straight into your bank account.
Yep. Yep.
So did you have to make any of your staff redundant?
No, and I couldn't do that anyway while they're on the subsidy. That's one of the guarantees that you give. So while they're on subsidy, you keep them employed, and I think we'll be all right. I think we'll come out the other side all right. Just depends on how the people who aren't using us at the moment, how they view the other side as well, basically, what time they're going to spend on setting people up, keeping them comfortable. But obviously the health and safety legislation is the same. So companies still got to take that initiative and look after their employees.
Right. So just a bit of detail, when you get that subsidy, you pass that subsidy on to your employees, is that right?
Yes.
So did they maintain their existing salary?
So you can choose to use the subsidy and top it up to full, or use the subsidy and top it up to 80% and then reducing if that's what you think, so you can reduce it down. The recommendation was use the subsidy, top it up to say 80%, then maybe the following month 70%, and decreasing down while you're watching your cash flow.
Right.
Or you can just pay the subsidy.
Right. And that's a one-off payment, or is there subsequent payments coming each month, or
well, the subsidy was paid up front for 12 weeks.
Right, so 3 months worth.
Yeah.
Right.
And that for me will end on the 20 something of June. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's really good. Thank you for being honest with us and being transparent about how that works with small businesses, and how you've managed to sort of keep your business going and what often can be seen as, that personal contact is nothing like, the number one eyeball to see how people are actually sitting at work and functioning at work, and to move that into a sort of telehealth sort of scenario using Zoom or whatever product platform you're using to do those assessments. You've managed to keep your business going. So well done.
Thank you. The time will tell, though. Yes. I guess we as I said, we invoice monthly, so we have most of the work is invoiced monthly. Some of the ACC work isn't. So we have a bit of a lag between what we do and what we get paid for. We'll be able to project that forward through April, May, June, and see how it looks. Yeah.
I mean, before we started recording, I said there was a lot of private practitioners out there. People may not know, but about 50% of registered practitioners work outside the DHB. And a lot of those will be in private practice, NGOs, and places of that nature. Do you have a network of private practitioners?
I was on the special interest group for private practitioners. I didn't partake because, as you know, everything you do that doesn't directly earn an income, it costs you. So it's always a difficult balance between working on the business and working in the business. So I wasn't very active in that. So I generally have worked fairly in isolation. My main sort of a group I have at the moment is actually with a group of physios. We, a few years ago, decided that locally we should try and work together as a group of independent practitioners to get contracts. Now, we didn't in the end do that because there's a lot of reasons which are probably fairly political, but we continue to meet regularly. So we chew the fat quite regularly around what we're doing, what we need to do, how we do it, and that works really well. I enjoy that contact. And then I also, I have peer supervision with a couple of practitioners in private practice, and then group supervision also with people who work in varying places. So, yeah.
Do you take students, OT students?
Yes, we do, and have enjoyed that challenge over the years. We had one in 2019. We've also had one overseas student one year, a few years back. That was good. Yeah.
So as we hopefully now come out of this pandemic, whatever that looks like, and what freedom we all have, what's your view of your business for the future?
Well, I think one thing that will happen is that we will keep doing remote assessments. I do think that so the part of our work where we do functional assessments and the maintenance of sort of a daily activity programs and those sorts of things, they're done for insurance clients, people with professional indemnity, with loss of, there was a bit of a slip there, with the loss of income. Now they can be done remotely, parts of. So for example, we're already doing the VIN and Palmerston North people. We might only need one visit and all the rest could be done remotely. So that I think will continue. The worksite assessments we're currently doing for Christchurch and Nelson and Auckland, we weren't doing those before because local practitioners would do that. I think we'll go back to local practitioners in that area because you can't really replace the face-to-face for that.
Mm-hmm.
But there will be some changes. There will be many more people working from home and there will be many more telehealth consults.
Yes.
No doubt, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Fran. That's been really interesting to get some insight into private practice and also into a niche area, if I can call it that, around sort of functional assessment and workstation sort of assessments by your company. Thank you for taking the time to speak to us, and good luck with the rest of the levels that we are working through,
Yes.
and good luck with your business.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Bye-bye.
Happy piano, everybody.